Okay, everybody, so I have these lovely mandala ombre, and this is color is tranquil. And I wanted to, well, this one is tranquil and this one is balance. um but I wanted to use both of them to work up a boomerang shawl. Okay, so there are 344 yards in this one, and this is a medium four waisted yarn, and this one calls for a 5.5 millimeter hook. So we'll be using a 5.5 millimeter hook to begin this, well, to work this whole piece up. Actually, I have to switch hooks. So we'll be working this up with a 5.5 millimeter hook or an eye hook. And I just did a video for this and I used half doubles, but I wanted to make one a little bit lighter. So I decided to go with this yarn is a little bit lighter, and at the same time, I'm going to do it in double crochets and add in a row where we have little holes going throughout it, every other row, to make it a little bit lighter, more spring like. If you're like me, I still like shawls and scarves and stuff during the summer at some point. um, Evenings, some evenings get cool, air conditioners get cool, so I wanted to make a lighter version with some little holes in it. So let's I'm gonna pick which one I'm gonna start with and we'll get started. Okay, so I got my 5.5 millimeter hook, and I decided to start with tranquil. So I'm going to start with a chain of four. One, two, three, and four. So into the first chain that we made, we're going to skip three. To the first chain that we made, we want to put two double crochets. This whole project will be worked in double crochets. Okay, so in the first row, we technically have three double crochets because the chain three that we skipped is going to act as a double crochet. So now we want to chain two, and we're going to turn our work. So into the first stitch, we want to place three double crochets. One, two, and three. And over the next two stitches, we want to decrease. Okay, so the way we're going to decrease with our double crochets, we're going to yarn over, we're going to go into the next stitch and grab our yarn and pull up. We have three loops on our hook. I'm going to go into the last space, grab our yarn and pull up. We're going to take off three, and then we're going to take off two. So that's row two. We're going to chain two, and we're going to turn our work. Now we just decreased. Wherever we decrease, we always want to decrease, so we will decrease again. Yarn over into the first stitch. We're going to pull up, and we have three loops on our hook. We're going to go immediately into the next space, grab our yarn and pull up. We now have four loops on our hook. We're going to take off three, and then we're going to take off the last two. And in this next space, we're going to make a double crochet. And into the last stitch, we want to place three double crochets. and we will chain 2 and turn our work. Now wherever we have increased, we always want to increase on that end, and where we decrease, we always want to decrease on that end. So one more time, we just ended with a increase. This is where we increase. So in the first stitch, we're going to place 3 double crochets all into that first stitch, and then we'll place double crochets until we get to our last 2 stitches. And our last 2 stitches are here, so we're going to yarn over and pull up, go immediately into the last stitch, yarn over and pull up. We're going to take off 3 loops from our hook, and then yarn over and take off the last 2. Going to chain 2 and turn my work. I begin with I ended with a decrease, so I must begin with a decrease. Yarn over, go into the first stitch, grab my yarn and pull up, go into the next stitch, grab my yarn and pull up. We're going to take 3 loops off our hook, and then we're going to take off the last 2. So here is where I'm going to start putting in my little spaces by just chaining 1. We're going to skip the next stitch. We're going to yarn over and go into the following stitch and place a double crochet. Again, we're going to chain 1. We're going to skip this stitch and into the next stitch. It's actually our last stitch where we have to increase, so we'll be putting 3 double crochets there. Chain 2, and we're going to turn our work. So we are where we need to increase. So in that first stitch, we're going to place 3 double crochets. And then we're going to place double crochets all the way down until we get to our last 2 stitches. Into the chain 1 space, we'll place a double crochet inside there. Double crochet. Now this chain 1 space is part of our decrease, so we're going to go inside there, grab our yarn and pull up, go inside the last stitch, grab our yarn and pull up, take off 3, and then take off 2. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to turn our work. Now we just ended with a decrease, so we'll decrease again. We'll go inside the first stitch, grab our yarn, pull up, go inside the second stitch, grab our yarn, pull up, take off 3, and then take off 2. We are then back at our chain 1 row, because these rows will be every other row. So we're gonna chain 1, skip this stitch, and into the next stitch we'll place a double crochet. Chain 1, skip this stitch, and into the next stitch we'll place a double crochet. Chain 1, we're going to skip this stitch and into the last stitch, which is where we increase at, we'll place 3 double crochets. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to turn our work. So we're where we need to increase, so into that first stitch we're going to place 3 double crochets. Now we did a row with our chain one spaces, so this row will be all double crochets until we get to our last two stitches. Into our chain one space, we place a double crochet. Now our last chain one space is part of our decrease, so we'll go inside that space, grab our yarn, pull up, go inside the last stitch, grab our yarn and pull up. We will take off 3, and then we will take off 2, chain 2, and turn our work. We just decrease, so we know we must decrease in this area. So we'll yarn over, go into the first stitch and pull up, go into the second stitch, grab our yarn and pull up. We're going to take off 3, and then we're going to take off 2. We're at a chain 1 row, so we're going to chain 1. We're going to skip this stitch, and into the next stitch we're going to place a double crochet, chain 1, skip this stitch, and into the next stitch we're going to place a double crochet, chain 1, skip this stitch, and into the next stitch we're going to place a double crochet, chain 1, and then we're going to skip this stitch, and into the last stitch, which is where we increase, we're going to place 3 double crochets there. Chain 2 and turn your work. So as you see, it's going to start to curve. That's what we want. We're only going to be increasing on one side, and we're only going to be decreasing on one side. Now, if it's the first stitch where we're increasing, it's going to determine if we're going this way or if we're going this way. It's going to be the last stitch because we'll be starting here. Okay, so whatever thing you do in the last row, that's going to be the thing that you start with, and you can clearly see where your increases are because it's 3 double crochets. Okay, and that is where your curve is going to look like this. So let's do a couple more rows together. So we're going to increase in the first stitch here and put 3 double crochets. Now we just did a chain 1 row, so this row will be all double crochets. And into the chain 1 space we place a double crochet, into the chain 1 space double crochet, into the chain 1 space a double crochet, and now our last 2 stitches are here, so we want to go into that chain 1 space and pull up, go into our last stitch and pull up. We want to take off 3, and then we want to take off 2, chain 2, and turn our work. So we end it with a decrease. We'll begin with a decrease. We'll go into the first stitch, grab our yarn, pull up, go into the next stitch, grab our yarn, pull up. We'll then take off 3, and then take off 2, chain 1, skip this stitch, and our next stitch we'll place a double crochet, chain 1, skip this stitch, and in the next stitch a double crochet, chain 1, skip this stitch, and into the next stitch a double crochet, chain 1, skip this stitch, and in the next stitch a double crochet, chain 1, skip this stitch, and into the last stitch it's time for an increase, so we will put 3 double crochet there. We'll chain 2, turn our work. We just increase, so we will increase again in that first stitch by placing 3 double crochet. And we just came off of a chain 1 row, so we'll be placing double crochets all the way till we get to the last 2 stitches. And inside the chain 1 space a double crochet, and as you see, it just grows, so nothing changes in the pattern. We just have more space to do what it is we're doing over and over again. Okay, so once we get here, this chain 1 space is part of our decrease, so we'll go in and pull up into our last stage, pull up, we'll take off 3, and then we'll take off 2, chain 2, turn our work, and we'll begin with the decrease row, and we are at chain 1 row. Okay, so we're just going to keep out the same pattern, and you're going to work this as long as you want it to be. Okay, if you want a scarf, then you're going to put as much as you would like for a scarf size. If you want to make it a shawl, you're going to go all the way out. I have again 2 of these, so I want to see if that's going to give me what I want with just 2. Okay, so I'm going to keep working this out, and I'm going to come back in and show you my progress and let you know the length and the width of it all. Okay, everybody, so this is the finished piece. This right here is where we started, and we boomeranged all the way around so we get to the end. And we turn it this way, always till we got to this end. I started 3 rows. The last 3 rows I decided to just make them double crochets, so I stopped the chain 1 pattern 1 row before I decided to start ending, and then just use the rest of my yarn out for that. Okay, So I absolutely love this. I hope you guys love this too. It's very light and very airy. And yeah, it just works. So that's it. That is our boomerang. I'm calling this one a shawl because it's a little bigger than the last one. But I hope you guys like this tutorial. And if you like this one, check out the other one. And the other one, we have no holes in it. It's just one solid piece. So you can see how it looks with just a solid piece. But yes, this screams spring slash summer to me. So I hope you guys totally enjoy this one, and let me know what different color combinations you use. Send me pics. I would love to see it. All right, you guys. So thank you for coming to the corner, and I'll see you next time.